different sport, but you got a piece on weei.com this morning, on how the New England Patriots ought to revamp at wide receiver, and you talked to some experts.
So I talked to some receiver specialists around the country who work with professional guys across franchises, just to get a sense of, like, not only with the Patriots, what they need to add to their receiver room, and specifically who they should look at, who fits, who makes sense. But also overall, when we're looking at the draft, what is the league getting wrong? When they're putting guys through the testing, when they're drafting guys, everybody's so focused on receiver. Here's the free agent wide receivers, trade for this receiver, draft this receiver. But the guys all told me the same thing that the league is getting wrong, which I thought was really interesting. But then there's some stuff in there about specifically like Deebo Samuel, what he would do here, Javon Baker, who he was last year versus who will be this year. So it was fun to write.
Yeah. There was one interesting person that you talked about, because this could affect the Patriots, where didn't you talk to a guy that is Travis Hunter's receiving coach?
Yes, yeah.
So it's interesting to see what position he's going to play, because I think if he wants to maximize and make the most money, it's receiver. But is he more of a corner naturally, because that's his natural position, than a wide receiver? Has there been any kind of insight?
Yeah, so that was David Robinson, who's worked with Travis Hunter, and I asked him, you know, about his fit in the NFL as receiver versus corner, and his perspective was the league wants him to be a corner. Like,
okay.
He fits as corner. He's going into the draft as a corner, but if he's not used, and I'm paraphrasing, but this is pretty much what he said, if he's not used at least 30% as a receiver at some point in the NFL, it's just such a waste of his attributes. So could you actually see somebody who's playing both sides of the ball? I know that's a speculation. It seems like he's going to lean heavily corner.
Okay.
But it's like, you don't want to, it's kind of like on a smaller level what we have with Marcus Jones here, where you're like, well, if you can throw them out there and do some stuff with them, first of all, everyone on the staff should know that.
You just have to let
second of all, get him out
the
there.
Offensive coordinator know that he could do that if you get a chance.
So it'll be somebody you'll sprinkle in here and there, but he's going to come in more as a corner. Okay, that's what
it sounds like. Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Of those that are out there, who you can only have one free agent wide receiver for this team, who do you want?
Well, I wouldn't even look at free agents at this point, because I think now that Tee Higgins is tagged, you got to look at the trade market. And if you can't get DK Metcalf, he's kind of the guy who seems to be most in his prime and that you'd want to pluck from another team and put in here and make an immediate impact. If you can't get him, I'm still going Cooper Kupp. I still think that Cooper Kupp, one of the things I talk to these specialists about is the league's obsession with speed. And it's like, people who are not specialists in the wide receiver position are looking in there going, well, just find Tyreek Hill, find Tyreek Hill, find Tyreek Hill. And it's like, okay, well, the thing about Tyreek Hill is at a certain point, that's the first thing that breaks down, right? Is your speed. So if you look at somebody like Cooper Kupp, that's somebody who has such solid hands. He only had a 2% drop rate last year. So there's the health concerns, but I think his makeup, both also what he can bring as a leader in the wide receiver room, which needs it. I think, like, he's still such a good fit for the Patriots.
Would you go, because Greg brought it up, and he brought up another player, and I know maybe he wants to go to the West Coast, but I would probably take Davante Adams over trying to trade for Cooper Kupp or Deebo Samuel. I agree. I would go DK Metcalf first, but if I had to choose between the older other guys, I would do my best to try to see if I could get Davante Adams before I go in that direction. Would you still feel the same way, or are you still Cooper Kupp all day?
Both. I mean, that's the thing is, like, can you trade and get Davante Adams? I heard Tommy Curran speaking with, I think it was Middays yesterday, talking about throw him like $65 million for 2 years, just guaranteed money from the bag so that he'll come here.
Okay.
And it's like, why not? You have so much money to play with. It's going to be a conversation of, are you targeting a couple of elite talent guys, which you haven't had on your roster in years, or are you going to do a little bit more like what the Commanders did last year, where you spread that money out among veterans at different positions and try to support your team that way?
Your Commanders.
My lovely Commanders.
Your Commanders, yes. All right. Well, it's great to see you back to back, and you can read Mego at weei.com.
Yeah, and please do, because there's some interesting stuff in there about Javon Baker as well.